international sprinter, a PhD candidate, as well as an independent filmmaker. These are all things that the Sunshine Coast Jane Larkin has on her resume. They're also things Jane has drawn on to produce, fund, direct and star in her own independent film, which is shot right here on the Sunshine Coast. It's called The Edge, and it focuses on the premise of female athletes. If you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space. Jane, good morning. Thank you so much for coming in. Walk me through this incredible journey.
Wow, I don't even know where to begin on that. You're right, it was the ride of a lifetime. I guess it all started with an idea. Many of us, think of stories based on our own experiences, and I think for many people that's where it stops. But for me, I was always really concerned with university and a postgraduate degree, and you're right, I am a PhD candidate, but I haven't quite handed it in yet in philosophy and creative writing.
What made you decide to become a filmmaker?
So I guess I wanted to be a filmmaker from the time I was a really little girl. The Matrix is my all-time favorite film, and that just captivated my attention. Not only the story and a deep kind of philosophical base, but also how did they actually take this idea, film it, and then present it to the masses? And so I really wanted to be able to do that from my own experiences, because I feel like female athletes is something that people don't really get or understand to the same degree. And I know why. The media are great at presenting Friday night football for male-driven sports. And I grew up with Chariots of Fire and Remember the Titans, inspirational films, of course, but they're really male-driven. So how did I get my own experiences out there? And I feel like film is a fantastic medium, because it can appeal to so many people, and I wanted to make a film about female athletes that could change the world.
You're an international athlete, and you have been for nearly a decade now. You are a sprinter. You went to World Youths, the Youth Olympics, World Championships. You got a scholarship over to the US to compete, and now you're telling the story of female athletes. How much do you think that played into your work?
My life's work was research, I guess. It was incredibly hard to, I was a 9-year-old when I started the journey of being an athlete. And by the time I was 14, 15, I was training twice a day, every day of the week, before I made my first junior team. And I understood what it was to put your heart, soul, mind, everything into something. And yeah, that's something that not everyone can understand because they haven't lived the journey. But those experiences gave me a really unique perspective on what it is to be a female athlete, and even how, things have changed even from the time I was a junior, and I think mostly positive changes, which I really like, and it gives me hope for female athletes, and I'm hoping to add to that with a film.
Which is a good segue into The Edge, which is your own independent film, which you wrote, you produced, you directed, and you starred in, which is an enormous feat for anybody. But you tell the story of 3 female athletes from very different backgrounds.
Yeah, so I always travelled with an array of people, and that's what I love about a race, when, there is only one winner, but it's so, it just levels people. You start at the exact same line, and the finish line is the same for everybody. And I've always had a lot to do with Indigenous athletes. As part of the Queensland Academy of Sport program, I went up to Indigenous towns like Weipa, had a lot to do, really inspired by the stories, inspired by their natural athleticism. And so it was really important to me to tell perspectives not just of my own, which I understand in many ways is quite privileged. I attended a private school. My parents gave me all the spikes I wanted in the world. But I also knew of many people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. I knew a lot of Indigenous athletes. And I trained alongside a bunch of Paralympians too, who are based at the University of the Sunshine Coast. So for me, I was like, I don't just want to tell my story. I want a shared experience where, all these women are one woman's woman, if that makes any sense. We're all coming together, and it is really a story about female companionship as well as individual athletes.
You're just giving me goosebumps, because obviously I have a background in athletics as well. I was never quite as good as you, but I would love to see more female athletes portrayed on the big screen. So you've got this idea, you decide to put it into a script, you're following the journey of 3 female athletes. One is an Indigenous person, one is a non-able-bodied athlete, and one is a sprinter like yourself. And it focuses on their relationships and not just the sport.
Yeah, well, obviously your personal life has a lot to do with how you perform. I had an argument with my partner right before the state titles one year, and it was one of the worst performances of my life. We'd be kidding ourselves if we say that our personal life doesn't have an effect on how we perform. And work-life balance, sport-life balance, there is so much of that. And so it was important for me to showcase these people as human beings. They're not just these athletes, and quite often we see tarnished versions on social media. We see post-race interviews, which are all about the glory, but we don't see behind the scenes, and I wanted to showcase that as much as possible.
Jane, to produce this film, you had to raise a phenomenal amount of money, and I just can't even get my head around that. Tell me about that.
You're so right in that we did have to raise quite a lot of money. And I guess what I did was I used my experience behind the camera and spoke to a lot of crew and producers who are so underrated to see how the process worked. Luckily, I got a lot of local businesses and unique individuals in a position where they could kind of support and give us money as an investment to invest in the film. And I'm just so lucky and that other people saw its potential.
Where are you currently? What's looking ahead for the film?
Yeah, the journey, oh my God. If I think about where we started to where we are now, I'm really stoked, but there's still a long way to go. We're currently in post-production, which means that the script was finalised. We started which means, just ideas behind who was in crew, who we were going to cast. Then we shot in January, February, mostly on the Sunshine Coast, but a couple of locations in Brisbane too. And then we started the long and arduous process of editing. So currently we are editing, but that's been going on for months and months now. Follow that, we've got sound design and colour grading and eventually pitching our project to distributors, and we've already made inroads with them, so we're really excited about the next step.
And for anybody who wants to, maybe sport's not your thing, but you do want to see the Sunshine Coast on the big screen, you filmed a lot at, obviously, the University of Sunshine Coast Athletics track. What are some of the other locations they can see?
Beautiful places around the Sunshine Coast where you can see some of the Glasshouse Mountains. You can see Alex Beach. Some places like on Ocean Street, there's quite a few places. Let me think. We did some studio work, so at Pluggers Film Studio, that's in Warana, just around the corner from some local cafe spots where we also filmed. Heaps of great local Sunshine Coast places. And I think as well, you touched on a really interesting thing. If sport's not your thing, could this still be a project for you? And I say absolutely. It deals with Indigenous athletes. It deals with themes of LGBTQIA+. It deals with the underdog. And I mean, I think that's the Aussie battler is a thing that we love as Australians. We love to root for the people who are less likely to achieve greatness.
Jane, thank you so much for your time. You're hearing there from Jane Larkin, independent Sunshine Coast filmmaker, on her journey to producing her new film about female athletes called The Edge, which is filmed right in our own backyard.